Hey. Little Thursday thunder for you, coming at you from the road, literally. I'm Bradley Sharpman at Thursday Thunder. We're going to talk about expat life a little bit today. I'm inspired by Stacy Ennis's Beyond Better podcast, where she talks about, among other things, like living abroad, especially if she's American living abroad. So that's what I want to talk about today, and which is why I'm sharing my neighborhood here. It's green as all get out. I love it. I used to live in the middle of San Francisco, and sure, there's some nice parks, but I live in between two forests. And so, sure, there are sacrifices to living abroad, and this is one of them. So I don't live in a big city anymore. I live in a small town. And so that's one thing. It's basically, when people think, oh, I'm going to live abroad, I'm going to live in the center of Rome. Great. And if you can swing that, awesome. But the way things worked out for us under the circumstances, whereas we had access to a place for a temporary lodging, and we took advantage of it so that we can make it work. So you know what? I think that's the bottom line, actually, of my little chat today. I think it's really about, you can either call it sacrifice or you can call it priorities. So for example, if your priority is to live in the most awesome city in the world, in your own country, that's one thing. But if you want to live in a foreign country, maybe that's a priority or a sacrifice to live in maybe a different place or a different type of place, even if it's temporary. In fact, I've been here 7 years now, and we're now looking at other cities. We're looking at the Hague and Harlem to potentially move to in the next few years, because here's another interesting one, especially for the Americans out there who are maybe not as long-term about this as I am, but I've been here for 7 years, and I'm going to quote Stacy Ennis almost exactly. She said, "We have no hard and fast plans of returning to the States." Now, if my American friends are listening, or if Americans are listening to this and they think that that's just crazy, I would have thought the same thing. But here's another factoid about living abroad, and that is, I believe, in fact I should title this podcast episode this: the further you are from home, the more you learn about home, or the farther away you move to and get away from what you think you know, sort of the more you're going to learn about what it is you know, if that makes any sense. So basically, I have learned more about the US by living outside of it than I think I did by living there. And part of that is also, compare and contrast. You live in a different place, you compare it to where you live, and you say, oh, this is better, this is worse. At the end of the day, I usually end up saying, it's just different. Is one better or worse? Well, that's a perspective, of course, but it's just different. And how are you going to accomplish that? How are you going to make that work? And for me, again, I'm back to priorities, but it's also like desires and wishes and joy and happiness. What makes you happy? And for me, what makes me happy is new locations, new environments, new cultures, new countries, new languages. And I don't need to reinvent myself again and again and again. I've done it several times, but now I really love where I am, and I'm going to stick with it for now until I feel like it's not where I want to be. And I'm quite a believer in the 7-year itch, and it's been 7 years now that we've been here, so who knows? So we'll see what happens in the coming couple of years as we're thinking of moving somewhere else, but in this country. So there you have a little bit of it. And I think here is, if I were king of the universe, I would require every citizen of every country to live abroad in a country that is quite different from your own for a certain amount of time. And I don't know, for me, the number is like 3 months. I remember traveling once, and we were traveling for 3 months, and I thought that was a good number. I really felt in 3 months I had experienced something quite well. And I know I'm in total dreamland. People are going to say, are you kidding? Leave my job or quit, or who's going to give me 3 months off, or how do I afford that? I totally hear you. I'm just saying how I think. You want world peace? That's how I think we get world peace. Maybe that should be the title of my podcast. By the way, if you don't know me, I'm Bradley Sharpman. I like to create. And the reason I like to create is because creating it actually creates knowledge, if that sounds intriguing. It creates something new that I didn't have before. So I didn't know I was going to talk about this particular thing or that particular thing. I basically hit record and I have less than 10 minutes to talk about living in a foreign country. All right, I've got one last one. I know I'm throwing a hodgepodge of information at you, but also my kids are absolutely fully bilingual. They are fluent in Dutch and English, and it's amazing. And I think from the research I've done reading about other languages is that it's a bit like you kind of double your brain. Your brain has more capacity because you think in two different languages and you see things in two different ways. All right, there you have it for today. This is Thursday Thunder coming to you mobile from my bike. There's my bike. I have a total clunker. From my bike here on this fantastic Thursday. If you'd like to know more about the expat life or living abroad, especially as an American living in Europe, which I know a lot about, feel free to send a comment, and looking forward to hearing from you. Have a great Thursday, make it a great week, and talk to you next week, because I'll be here doing this. Bye for now.